Doctor throws elderly man out of hospital. He never knew that minutes later, karma would strike hard and he would regret it forever. I hope you're having a great day. Enjoy the story. Dr. Marcus Stern strode through the bustling emergency clinic in Gainesville, Florida, his white coat billowing behind him like a cape. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face, accentuating the permanent furrow between his brows. He was a man on a mission, racing against the clock to see as many patients as possible before his shift ended. As he rounded the corner, his eyes fell upon an elderly man slumped in a chair, trembling visibly. Harold Thompson, 72 years old, had been waiting for hours, his flu symptoms worsening with each passing minute. Beside him sat his granddaughter, Lily, her hand resting protectively on his arm. Harold's rheumy eyes met Dr. Stern's, silently pleading for help. The doctor felt a flicker of empathy, quickly extinguished by the pressure of his workload. He motioned for Harold to follow him into the examination room, unaware that this encounter would change the course of both their lives forever. As Harold shuffled into the examination room, Dr. Stern's impatience grew. He'd seen dozens of flu cases that day, each one blending into the next. Harold's labored breathing and flushed cheeks barely registered as the doctor began his cursory examination. "Just another case of the flu," Dr. Stern muttered, scribbling on his clipboard. "Take some over-the-counter medication and rest." "Next." Harold blinked in confusion. "But, doctor," he rasped, "I've been feeling worse for days. My chest. It's so tight." Dr. Stern's jaw clenched. He'd heard it all before, patients exaggerating their symptoms, demanding unnecessary tests. "I said you're fine," he snapped. "Get up and go." Harold's trembling intensified, a mix of fever and distress. "Please," he whispered, "I need help." Something inside Dr. Stern snapped. The long hours, the endless stream of patients, the weight of his own unacknowledged burnout, it all came crashing down in that moment. "Didn't you hear me?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the small room. "Get out!" Lily, waiting anxiously outside, heard her grandfather's plea and the doctor's harsh response. Her heart raced as she pushed open the door, finding Harold struggling to stand, his face a mask of confusion and shame. "Grandpa!" she cried, rushing to his side. She turned to Dr. Stern, her young face flushed with anger. "How can you treat him like this? He's sick." Dr. Stern's nostrils flared. "This is none of your business, young lady. I've made my diagnosis." Lily's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. "I'm recording this," she declared, her voice wavering but determined. "People need to know how you're treating patients." The doctor's eyes widened, a mixture of rage and fear flashing across his face. In a moment of blind fury, he lunged forward, snatching the phone from Lily's grasp. The device clattered to the floor, its screen shattering on impact. "You can't do this," Lily screamed, tears streaming down her face. "I'm a minor." Harold, leaning heavily against the examination table, looked at Dr. Stern with a mixture of disappointment and pity. In that moment, he saw not a healer, but a man who had lost his way. Dr. Stern stormed out of the examination room, his heart pounding in his ears. He could feel the eyes of patients and staff upon him, judging, questioning. He needed to escape, to regain control. As he pushed through the clinic doors into the bright Florida sunlight, his mind raced with justifications and excuses. He was so caught up in his own thoughts that he failed to notice the uneven pavement beneath his feet. In a split second, his world tilted. Dr. Stern's foot caught on a crack, sending him sprawling forward. He threw out his hands to break his fall, but it was too late. His body hit the ground with a sickening thud, pain exploding in his ankle and face. As he lay there, stunned and bleeding, the irony of the situation wasn't lost on him. He who had just dismissed a patient in need was now the one in distress. While Dr. Stern grappled with his sudden misfortune outside, Harold and Lily remained in the examination room, shaken by what had transpired. The commotion had drawn the attention of other patients and staff, and whispers began to circulate through the clinic. Amidst the chaos, a well-dressed man approached Harold and Lily. His presence commanded respect, but his eyes held genuine concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice gentle but authoritative. Harold nodded weakly, still trembling from the ordeal. Lily, protective as ever, eyed the stranger warily. "Who are you?" she demanded. The man's gaze swept over the scene. The shattered phone, Harold's obvious distress, the murmuring crowd outside. He took a deep breath before answering. "I'm Daniel Reeves, the owner of this chain of clinics." Lily's eyes widened in surprise while Harold managed a faint smile of relief. Perhaps now, they thought, someone would listen. Daniel Reeves had built his chain of clinics on a foundation of compassion and quality care. As he listened to Harold and Lily recount their experience, his face grew increasingly grave. This was everything he had fought against in his career. "I am deeply sorry for what you've endured," he said, his voice heavy with sincerity. "This is not what our clinics stand for, and I assure you, there will be consequences." As if on cue, a commotion erupted outside. Daniel stepped out to find Dr. Stern being helped to his feet by two nurses, his face scratched and his ankle visibly swollen. The doctor's eyes met Daniel's, and in that moment, he knew his actions had caught up with him. Daniel's expression was a mixture of disappointment and resolve as he approached. "Dr. Stern," he began, his voice low but firm, "we need to talk." As Daniel led Dr. Stern to a private office, leaving Harold and Lily to receive proper care, the atmosphere in the clinic crackled with tension. Everyone sensed that a pivotal moment was unfolding. Inside the office, Dr. Stern slumped into a chair, the adrenaline from his fall giving way to a bone-deep weariness. He expected to be fired on the spot, his career in ruins. But what happened? Next would change the course of everyone's lives. Daniel didn't yell, he didn't threaten or condemn. Instead, he asked a simple question. "Marcus, what's really going on?" The use of his first name, spoken with genuine concern, broke something open in Dr. Stern. Years of bottled-up stress, the weight of countless life-and-death decisions, the slow erosion of his empathy, it all came pouring out. I don't know who I am anymore," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I became a doctor to help people, but somewhere along the way I lost sight of that." Daniel listened, really listened, for the first time seeing the human behind the harsh exterior. And in that moment he made a decision that would set in motion a series of events no one could have predicted. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes locked on Dr. Stern's. "I'm not going to fire you, Marcus," he said, causing the doctor's head to snap up in surprise, "but I am going to challenge you." He outlined his proposal. Dr. Stern would take a month-long leave of absence. During this time, he would volunteer at a free clinic in an underserved area of Gainesville. He would work alongside community health workers, experiencing healthcare from a different perspective. "And," Daniel added, his tone brooking no argument, "you'll work closely with Harold Thompson. He's agreed to be part of our new patient advocacy program. You'll learn from him, understand his experiences, and help us improve our care." Dr. Stern's mind reeled. It wasn't punishment, it was an opportunity, a chance to reconnect with why he became a doctor in the first place. Slowly he nodded, a mix of trepidation and hope stirring in his chest. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change for Dr. Stern. He found himself in a tiny, overcrowded clinic in one of Gainesville's poorest neighborhoods. Gone were the state-of-the-art equipment and efficient systems he was used to. Here, every day was a challenge in creativity and resourcefulness. He worked alongside Maria, a dedicated community health worker who seemed to know every patient by name. Her boundless empathy and tireless work ethic both humbled and inspired him. "How do you do it?" he asked her one day, after watching her. "Spend hours helping a young mother navigate the complex healthcare system. How do you keep caring so much?" Maria's smile was tired but genuine. "Because every person who walks through that door is someone's loved one," she replied. "They deserve our best no matter what." Her words stayed with Dr. Stern, echoing in his mind as he faced each new patient. As the days passed, Dr. Stern found himself looking forward to his meetings with Harold Thompson. The elderly man's quiet dignity and wealth of life experiences provided a new perspective on patient care. They would sit in the clinic's small break room, sharing coffee and conversation. Harold spoke of his life, his struggles with the healthcare system, and his hopes for better care for people like him. "It's not just about the medicine, Dr. Stern," Harold explained one afternoon. "It's about feeling heard, feeling respected. When a doctor truly listens, it can be as healing as any pill." Dr. Stern absorbed these lessons, feeling a slow but profound shift in his approach to patient care. He began to see each person not as a set of symptoms to be treated, but as a whole individual with unique needs and experiences. As Dr. Stern's month of volunteering neared its end, he faced his greatest challenge yet. A young woman came into the clinic, clearly in distress. Her symptoms were vague and initial tests came back inconclusive. In the past, Dr. Stern might have dismissed her concerns or rushed to an easy diagnosis. But now, he remembered Harold's words about feeling heard. He sat with the patient, really listening to her story, picking up on subtle clues. His persistence paid off. Further tests revealed a rare condition that, if left untreated, could have had serious consequences. The gratitude in the young woman's eyes, as he explained the diagnosis and treatment plan, reminded him of why he became a doctor in the first place. That evening, as he shared the story with Harold, he felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years, the satisfaction of truly making a difference in someone's life. The day arrived for Dr. Stern to return to his regular position at the clinic. As he walked through the doors, he felt like a different person than the one who had stormed out a month ago. His first patient of the day was an elderly woman with symptoms similar to those Harold had presented with initially. Dr. Stern took a deep breath, pushing aside the urge to rush through the examination. He sat down, made eye contact and asked, "Tell me what's been going on. I'm here to listen." The relief and gratitude on the woman's face were immediate. As she shared her story, Dr. Stern found himself fully engaged, his mind working to connect the dots and provide the best possible care. When the examination was over, the patient reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you, doctor," she said, her eyes misty. "For the first time in years, I feel like someone in a white coat actually sees me." Dr. Stern felt a lump form in his throat. He had come full circle, and in helping others, he had found healing for himself. In the weeks that followed, the changes in Dr. Stern became impossible to ignore. Patients commented on his improved bedside manner, and staff noted his increased patience and willingness to collaborate. Daniel Reeves watched these developments with quiet satisfaction. During their final meeting to discuss Dr. Stern's future at the clinic, he couldn't help but smile. "You've come a long way, Marcus," he said. "What do you see as your next steps?" Dr. Stern leaned forward, his eyes bright with purpose. "I want to implement a patient advocacy program," he said, "something that ensures every patient feels heard and respected, regardless of their background or condition." Daniel nodded approvingly. "And Harold Thompson?" "I'd like him to co-lead the program with me," Dr. Stern replied without hesitation. "His insights have been invaluable." As they shook hands, both men knew that this was more than just a professional agreement. It was the beginning of a new chapter for the clinic, one founded on empathy, respect, and genuine care. 1 year later, Dr. Marcus Stern stood before a crowded auditorium, Harold Thompson by his side. They were presenting the results of their patient advocacy program at a national healthcare conference. As Dr. Stern spoke about the program's success, improved patient outcomes, higher satisfaction rates, and a more engaged staff, he caught sight of a familiar face in the audience. Lily, Harold's granddaughter, now a pre-med student, beamed up at them. He remembered the angry, frightened girl from that fateful day and marveled at how far they had all come. Her presence was a powerful reminder of the ripple effects of both cruelty and kindness in healthcare. As the presentation concluded, Dr. Stern turned to Harold. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion, "for teaching me to be a better doctor and a better human being." Harold's eyes twinkled as he replied, "And thank you, Marcus, for reminding an old man that it's never too late to make a difference." Together, they stepped off the stage, ready to continue their work of transforming healthcare, one patient at a time. In the end, what had started as a moment of crisis had become a catalyst for positive change. touching countless lives in ways they could never have imagined. The applause that filled the auditorium was more than just approval for their presentation. It was a celebration of the power of compassion, the importance of second chances, and the profound impact that can occur when we choose to see the humanity in one another. As Dr. Stern looked out over the sea of faces, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had rediscovered his purpose not just as a doctor, but as a healer in the truest sense of the word. And in doing so, he had helped create a model of care that put empathy and human connection at its very core. The journey had been challenging, often painful, but ultimately transformative. It served as a powerful reminder that in healthcare, as in life, true healing begins with understanding, respect, and the willingness to listen. As the conference attendees filed out, energized and inspired, Dr. Stern knew that this was just the beginning. There was still so much work to be done, so many lives to touch, but now he faced that future not with burnout and resentment, but with hope and renewed purpose. In the end, the story of Dr. Stern, Harold, and Lily was more than just a tale of personal redemption. It was a call to action for healthcare professionals everywhere, a reminder that behind every chart, every diagnosis, there is a human being deserving of compassion and dignified care. And as they left the auditorium, stepping out into the bright Florida sunshine, Dr. Stern, Harold, and Lily knew that together they had set in motion a change that would ripple out far beyond the walls of one clinic in Gainesville. They had sparked a movement, one that held the power to transform not just healthcare, but the very fabric of human interaction. It was a new day, full of promise and possibility. And for Dr. Marcus Stern, it was the continuation of a journey that had only just begun, a journey of healing, both for his patients and for himself. You might also like one of the 2 videos on your screen. Feel free to watch them now or subscribe to the channel to watch them later. Thanks for watching.